Welcome to the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast. This is episode 122, and this is the first episode in our new series, the Position series. Something along those lines. Haven't figured out the name yet.
We're workshopping the name. Yes, Positional series with Kieren Lefebvre, Adam Childs. We're going to be diving into more details around specific positions to help give you a better grasp of those positions and some sort of tips and tricks and whatever.
Hacks, tools, some hacks, strategies. Tools,
yep. Just your one-stop shop, basically.
Exactly.
Until someone comes out with a new DVD or something.
Yeah, until we run out of ideas. So to break this down, this is actually our first attempt at a structured series of episodes. I mean,
this is our first attempt at a structured episode.
Yeah, well, we've attempted structured episodes before. The way these episodes are going to run, I'm going to tell you about the structure and then what's coming up in the series. You know that today, because of the title, this is all about back mount or back control, if you will. But the structure of the episode, we're going to talk about general concepts of the position that we're exploring. We're going to talk about attacking, defending, and then have a bit of time for talking about resources, specific moves, instructional content, or more learning resources, blah, blah, blah. Have that as an option there as well. And what's coming up in the series, first episode is on back mount. Then we're talking about regular old mount.
Oh, yeah, that old chestnut.
The old standard boring mount. Then side control. Or side mount.
Okay.
Okay, if you say so. And then we're going to talk about close guard / open guard, and then it may continue from there.
Yes, but don't be too alarmed. The banter will still be there. We get quite a few comments of, people being like, oh, I love the banter, blah, blah, blah. So
yeah, I've learned nothing, but at least it's funny.
Yeah. The best one was the episode that turned into a 30-minute learning lecture about chess and the scandals in chess, and got quite a few people not comment, but people in the gym say like, oh man, I didn't know that much about chess. Oh, that was really cool. So, 45 minutes later, we're like, all right, so back mount. It might well and truly.
So yeah, the structure of these episodes is not to stop tangents, but to have a structure so you know what to expect. And there's also going to be chapters and timestamps in the video description / Spotify description. So if you come back to these episodes from the future, then you always have a way to quickly jump into whatever section you're interested in.
Look at that, man. We're just taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
So
now what?
That's it. That's as far as we got, guys. We've structured explaining the structure.
Yeah.
And carry on. Yeah, so
general concepts
back
of
control.
The position.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, back mount or back control, arguably the best position in jiu-jitsu, you could say. It's really one of the few positions where the defending person has no offensive options whatsoever. Like even the second worst position, if you will, like mount, there's not many, but I mean, Craig Jones is known for doing this sneaky no-gi Ezekiel choke from bottom mount.
He attempted that in the finals at ADCC.
Right? Whereas when someone's on your back, I'm pretty much taking the whole leg locking them when they cross their feet off the table.
Yeah, that's why I laughed.
That's something, that's like something you get caught in like once or twice when you're a white belt, and you pretty quickly, undo that habit before it becomes a bad habit, right? Of crossing your ankles. So, but I want to talk a little bit about the general concepts and the control of back position. So, and obviously, like always, can be slightly difficult, and I'll do my best to explain it in an audio format, obviously. But even when I teach this in the gym, sometimes I grab my two phones. I have two phones because I'm a drug dealer, and I'll use my two phones as the little, army man dolls to explain back position. But bear with me, okay? So when you're on someone's back, let's imagine you've just got standard back control. So you got both hooks in and you got a seat belt, okay? to retain back control, which is the number one thing for any position where you're then in it, the next objective is a submission, right? Obviously, if you can't control the position, your chance of hitting the submission are very slim. Same with leg locks. No good being able to dig the heel, but in the process you lose the knee line, so then they escape. And I'm sure most people, in whether it's something that still is currently happening for them or has happened to them from when they started jiu-jitsu to now, I'm sure people have had that experience where they've, essentially locked a rear naked choke, but at the cost of losing the back position, and the person still kind of slides out and you lose the choke and everything. So you need to be able to retain back position first. And the number one way that you do that is really your seatbelt and not your hooks. Okay, hooks they facilitate your back control and they score you good points. Okay, but they don't keep you on the back. They help, but they don't keep you on the back. If you're sitting here thinking, well, it's funny. In the last episode, you talked about whenever you mention something online about fitness or whatever, you get people who have done 5 bicep curls jump in the comments and think that they're an expert. And I'm not by any means saying I'm the be-all and end-all expert. Of course I'm not. There's people far better than me at jiu-jitsu who know way more than me.
You are an expert in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think so. I come from a really good coach and gym.
Well, I say you are.
No, thanks, Kieren. That's all we got time for. I'm happy.
Your blue belt seal of approval. You're welcome.
So if you're sitting there thinking like, oh man, hooks, blah, 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 well, just do this little experiment next time you're in the gym. Get a partner, put both your hooks in, but no seatbelt, and see how long you can stay on their back, right? Then do it again, no hooks, but put your seatbelt, see how long you can stay on their back. I guarantee you stay on their back longer with that seatbelt control than you do just with hooks, right? So your seatbelt is what, and I'm going to try to keep it not very simple, because the idea is for us to go into detail. Otherwise, what's the point of the episode? Exactly. But I don't want to, I'm not going to, it's not a John Danaher instructional where in 45 minutes, you're like, so, and that's what a seatbelt is. No, right? I'm not going to, but because, the seatbelt, there's, half Nelson control. There's you can have the Kimura grip control, and these can all serve similar functions, right? But so I'm just talking about upper body control, seatbelt control. You're essentially looking to control the shoulders, okay? And the perfect way to describe this, the perfect analogy is if you imagine that and I do this as a visual demonstration when I'm explaining it to beginners in the gym, is I'll have someone stand in front of me, right? As if I'm on their back, but they're just standing in front of me. And you put your hands on their shoulders and you go, okay, their shoulders, I can turn them like handlebars on a bike, right? So when someone is trying to turn to escape the back or whatever, and they turn, you have 2 options. Let's say they turn 90 degrees for argument's sake. They're standing in front of me, they turn 90 degrees. I have 2 options. My hands are on the handlebars. I either steer the handlebars back straight so they're back in front of me, or I also turn 90 degrees to keep myself behind them. And in a nutshell, that's what back control is. That's how you stay on the back. It's about staying behind them, and a combination of staying behind them and keeping their back exposed to you, right? So you can never lose that alignment. Another great way to think about it is if you imagine that if you imagine you were literally like impaled, through your back, out your sternum, and then into their back, out their sternum. You've got this fixed point that you can kind of pivot around, but that alignment of you being flush on their back, you never lose that, right? So that's the job of the upper body control. So when that translates to being a seatbelt, it's slightly different because you don't physically have your hands on their shoulders like handlebars on a bike. But it does more or less the same thing. You just have to understand that depending on which way around your seatbelt is, you're better at turning in one direction. So, for example, hopefully everyone's still with me. You still with me, Kieren?
I'm with you.
Kieren's with me.
Impaled.
Impaled. So if you've got your seatbelt, let's imagine your left arm is over the top. So your left arm would be the choking arm of your seatbelt, okay? So that means your ability to turn the handlebars to the left is stronger because that left arm that's going over their shoulder is also in front of their shoulder.
Yes.
So by the way you can turn is actually by pulling, right?
Pulling on that shoulder back. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not just pulling, right? It's also you pushing into the back of the other shoulder. So you're
with my right shoulder.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you're better at turning that way. Now that's an important thing to understand. So if we keep this same orientation of our seatbelt, where our left arm's the one over the top, right? If the person who is trying to escape my back control, they try to turn to the right, I'm really strong at stopping that rotation, right? So imagine it's handlebars on the bike.
Yep.
And it's got a dinky wheel or whatever, and the bike wants to turn to the right. It's easy for me to stop that because with my left arm over the top, I'm very strong at pulling and turning to the left.
Right. So we're like in the scenario, we're laying on the choking arm side and they're trying to get their back to the mat. I'm going to be in the strongest position to stop that because they're trying to turn to their right to get their back to the mat and I can turn them back.
That's right. A combination of pulling, but also pushing. Okay, in that specific scenario, it will be more pushing into the back of the shoulder. Yeah. But yes, you're right. Whereas if they decide to turn to the left in the direction that I'm very good at pulling, well, I'm now not really good at turning the handlebars in the opposite direction. Like you can.
They're turning into your choking arm now.
That's right. So my left arm's over the top. They're turning towards my choking arm. It's harder, not impossible. Nothing's impossible. I say this all the time to my students. Every single rule in jiu-jitsu, when you say like, oh, you're not supposed to do this or whatever, every rule can be broken. Every rule has exceptions. But if you don't understand the rules, you don't know how to break them. The same as, a good lawyer understands the law. That's how
they break it.
Yeah, that's how they can find loopholes and manipulate the law, right?
Yeah.
So there's, so it's not like you can't stop that rotation, but it's much harder. So that's a case where you're going to follow them. Like they turn to the left. I'm very good at turning left anyway. So I'm not going to stop that turn. I'm just going to chase that turn. So, that's how your seatbelt works, right? So it is like hands on the handlebars of a bike, but whichever arm is your choking arm, that's the direction you're better in turning at. So if your right arm's the choking arm, you're better turning right. If your left arm's the choking arm, you're better turning left, right? So, and you that understanding of turning their shoulders helps keep the back exposed. So if we go to the example that you gave, my left arm's the choking arm, okay? We're lying on the left-hand side, which I'll go into this in a second, which I believe is the worst side to lie on.
The head's on the pillow.
The head's on the pillow. Yeah, so,
That's the best way I remembered it.
We'll dial this back a little bit. So for beginners, you're typically taught this, right? You're typically taught that when you want to escape the back, you're taught something like this. The choking arm, right? Whichever way that finger is pointing, so that left arm has come over your shoulder. If you imagine they're making pointing with that finger, it's telling you, go this way to not get choked, right? So you're told to kind of fall away from the choking arm to get your head to the mat, your shoulders to the mat and escape. And that escape is fine, works great. That's your cookie cutter back escape, okay? So then at the same time as that, you're then taught when you're the attacking person that you don't want them to fall away from the choke because it's easier for them to escape. You want them to fall onto the choke. There's definitely truth to that. Like that statement alone is true. However, like I just said, you need to know the rules and understand them to be able to break them. Myself and a lot of people worse than me at jiu-jitsu and a lot of people far better than me at jiu-jitsu will opt to be the attacker, but still have them fall away from the choking arm. Right? Because in my opinion, your choking arm is then not stuck between them and the ground, and
you can do more with it. You have more
you gain a
range
whole bunch more mobility and stuff. However, for a beginner, I do feel that there's a lot of truth to the whole,
And depending on what submission you like,
it also depends what
way better
submission you want.
setups for some submissions when your choking arm is
That's right. Like
up.
That's right. Yeah. If you want to switch to arm bars or, triangles from the back or whatever. But
so do you want to transition to, because we sort of already are, segue into attacking?
In a little bit. Yeah. I've got one more thing I want to go over.
Right.
And then, so yeah, but the pillow thing Kieren was talking about, this is a way that sometimes you teach it to kids.
Yeah.
Right. You'll say, imagine the choking arm, because that's the one next to your head. Imagine it's a pillow, so you will say to the kids, oh, if you fall towards the choking arm, that's like your head's on the pillow. If you put your head on the pillow, you're going to go to sleep, right? So you don't want to put your head on the pillow. Go the other way, right?
It's funny. That's like the one way I remember it the most is the kids.
The
kids analogy.
So going back to, the handlebars thing, going back to, like you said, if we're lying on the choking arm, so my left arm's the choking arm, we've fallen to the left side, and they're trying to get their back to the mat, right? This is a scenario where I'm going to want to re-expose their back, right? And this is why I usually get two phones to demonstrate this sort of this example, but I'm going to try to do it as best as I can for anyone who's not watching YouTube. Remember, I want to stay flush with them, chest to back, that impaled sort of position. So them getting to the mat, right? They're not going to try to spin away from you, right? That's the wrong thing to do. The person escaping, they've fallen to the left, but they're actually going to, as they laterally move to the left, they're going to be like turning to the right to try remove their back from your chest. So you as the attacker have to re-expose their back. So this is when you really have to turn those handlebars by pushing into the back of their right shoulder, in this case, to re-expose their back, right? So you can, remain impaled on their back, and then, there's a bunch of stuff you can do. So one of the best drills you can do before we go into attacking to practice your back control is a very simple drill. Well, simple enough, right? If you know how to do it properly. There'll be lots of resources where you can find it, but you essentially have your seatbelt hooks, you fall to one side, the defender clears the bottom hook, you handlebar steer them to re-expose their back, do a chair sit. If you don't know what that is, put it into YouTube. It's a type of back take.
You just bring your knee up.
Yeah, bring your knee up near their head, sit them up into the chair, fall all the way to the other side. And then the same thing, they clear the bottom hook, right? Little different on the opposite side. You got a post on your forehead, but you jump up to your knee, chair sit, back to the other side. So you're just going side to side, just retaining back control. They start escaping, you re-expose their back, chair sit, other side. They start escaping, re-expose their back, chair sit, other side. And it's quite an exhausting drill.
I like the drill, yeah.
That's a great drill.
It's super fucking useful.
Yeah, do
because
one and a half.
That position happens all the time.
All the time. Do 1.5 minutes of that, then change your seatbelt side, so it's the other side. Do 3 minutes of that, and you'll be like, fuck that drill.
Yeah.
It's a great drill.
It's really fun. Like, I like it because not only are you drilling the re-back take or the re-back exposure, but you're right, it is different side to side. On if you're trying to do the chair sit to the side where your choking arm is making the pillow, the head's on the pillow, you have to, you post, it's super easy, bring up your knee, take it to the other side. But if your choking arm is on top, like you mentioned, you got a post on your forehead.
Yeah, because your arm's not in the position to post on
Exactly, yeah. Like if you imagine that your choking arm was your frame that you sat up onto your elbow, you no longer have that. And your right arm is all the way tucked down underneath their armpits, out of the way. It's not really helping you. So you have to lean forward, post your forehead on the mat, and then you can bring your knee up.
That's right, yeah. So it's a great drill. If you want more, if you can't find anything on it and you want more information, let us know. I can take me 2 seconds to record a video of myself doing it and explaining it, and you guys can get the information there.
Perfect. Now let's move on to attacking.
Attacking what?
Attacking,
Yes.
attacking your grandmother. It's Thanksgiving. She got out of line. How do we take her out?
She bought the shit cranberry sauce.
Yeah, let's take her out. Take it away.
Yeah, so attacking the back. Gonna slightly. Let me first sort of share my opinion about attacking in the gi versus no gi when you're on the back. So, I mean, it's safe to say that whatever works in no gi works in the gi. There's just a lot of techniques that are harder to do in the gi, right? Sorry, I don't mean gi specific techniques. I mean techniques that work in no gi. They'll work in the gi, but they can just be more difficult. So some of the examples of that are guillotines are more difficult to do in the gi. Rear naked chokes are more difficult to do in the gi. North-south chokes are more difficult. Das chokes are more difficult.
Head arm chokes.
Arm triangles are more difficult. So all these chokes are more difficult because the gi gets in the way, right? And not only does the gi get in the way, sometimes it's also just a combination of not being able to get, let's say you want to do a rear naked choke. It might not even be that the gi gets in the way, but the fact that your opponent can grab your sleeve as a means of defending, you might never even get your arm deep enough in for a rear naked choke.
And when you're saying the gi gets in the way, you're talking about, in some cases, the friction between the material,
exactly.
right?
So it could be the friction of the fabric itself that makes, so that's a good example for when the gi is a problem for Das chokes. The friction is like punching your arm through their armpit and in front of their chest. But sometimes it gets in the way in the sense that you want to go for a rear naked choke or a Das choke or something, and you're trying to punch your arm through, and it would have made it through, but your finger gets stuck on a collar. And you're like, oh, fuck, right? And you lost the window of opportunity. Yeah. So that doesn't mean you can't rear naked choke, Das choke, north-south in the gi. 100% you can, right? But yeah, it obviously doesn't work the other way around. You can't collar choke someone in no gi, obviously. So they're the differences. So in my opinion, when you're on someone's back in the gi, I find collar choke's the better option if you're looking at a choke, right? No gi, you've only really got a rear naked choke from the back. Yes, you can do other choke, like you can do other variants, like the palm to palm, throat crush, rear naked choke.
I think, is that called a fulcrum?
Yeah.
Fulcrum variation.
Yeah. Yep. You can switch to a triangle from the back.
Yeah, there's different variations where their arm's still in, but you can get the rear naked choke grip and then crush and
and there's I'm sure there's instructionals that are labeled arm triangle from the back, but really it's starting on the back, someone's escaping the back, you transition to mount, do an arm triangle, right? That's not an arm triangle from the back. There's
like
an arm
arm
triangle.
bar from the back are the same sort of thing. You sit back from the arm bar.
Yeah. So in the gi, when it comes to attacking, I personally really just look at collar chokes and arm bars and stuff. Like, I don't mind switching to arm bars and all that as well. But yeah, that old saying of chokes being superior because no matter how tough and strong you are, cut the blood supply off, you're going to pass out. So I find it really hard to get to rear naked chokes, but also because of the way that those two feed off each other. So I'll give you a little bit of a tip that I do all the time in the gi against my, not just my students, but anyone I'm training with, is it's very difficult to defend both the collar choke and rear naked choke at the same time. And here's why. When you go for a collar choke, any type of collar choke from the back, or it could be a bow and arrow, whatever it is.
My favorite. Yeah,
still to date, my favorite choke probably is a bow and arrow.
100%.
Yeah, I really, really like that choke. Is that the defender will be taught, okay, they've got your collar and they're trying to pull their elbow back to finish the choke. So you hold their sleeve, their sleeve and their gi at the tricep or whatever, and you pull it back through, right? So you're
putting on the seatbelt.
Yeah, like you're putting on the seatbelt. So they can't retract their arm. They can't pull their arm back to choke you. But what you can do in the gi is as someone, pulls that through to defend the collar choke, well, then you go with that and punch your arm all the way through for a rear naked choke. And then all of a sudden they start going shit and they start trying to pull that arm back out to defend the rear naked choke on the way out. Yeah, exactly. Not only back to the collar, but you've just gotten the deepest collar grip possible because you were essentially in a rear naked choke position, and then you're back on the collar. So the way that you defend one facilitates the other, so it's kind of like very difficult to defend both at once.
Just trying to remember, we were in a similar position like that just before I was injured. Now this is taking us back like five weeks ago. And we were playing like a similar back and forth game, but I kept going the wrong way or something. And then
when you were on my back or I was on your back?
No, you were on my back and I was defending. And then I think I created a scenario where that occurred, where I was pulling you in, but then you got deeper. I was pushing you out. Then you took the collar, and then I ended up just facilitating a super deep choke, and then you end up getting a cross collar choke.
Yeah. So I mean, I use that all the time.
And I even know the concept behind it.
But you kind of screwed, right? Like
what else are you going to do? Am I going to let you get the collar grip?
Yeah.
No. But then you just take the other.
Yeah, like otherwise, obviously there's still options, but
sometimes there's not.
But sometimes there's not, right? Like, it's like when people ask you, how do I escape this fully extended armbar? It's like, well, I can show you, but fuck, man, the odds are, especially a rear naked choke, man. Like a rear naked choke, you don't need to have that much experience. Like, take someone who's been training for a year and, Gordon Ryan lets the person put hooks in a fully locked rear naked choke, and Gordon's not allowed to start defending until they start squeezing. I mean, like he shouldn't be able to get out.
Yeah.
Like there's not many people that would be able.
Well, we did that experiment.
We did that experiment in one of your YouTube.
Over a year ago, we filmed a video where we progressively made the challenge harder and harder. Like I started in an armbar with Adam having his grips, and then we went to back control. No, basically the idea was, how far would I need to be put into a position until I got a sub on a black belt as a white belt? And it took all the way up until the one thing you couldn't escape was a fully locked in, deep as fuck, rear naked choke, hooks in, fully locked, and then squeeze and go. And it's almost impossible without having your chin already tucked.
Yeah, there's a video of Frank Mir, who, if you don't know who that is, former UFC heavyweight world champion, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, the Mir lock, which is a variation of an Americana, named after him. First guy to submit Big Nogueira in the UFC. So very, very good, accomplished Jiu-Jitsu athlete. And he was doing a seminar or something, and he's teaching some back escapes and teaching specifically someone had asked, like, how do you defend a rear naked choke or whatever? And he went along the same sort of lines. And when he got to the point of like, how do you escape a fully rear naked lock choke? And he's like, man, like it's pretty much impossible. Like if the person knows what they're doing, it's pretty much impossible.
If I get extend, like peel their arm back or whatever, that's the only option you have is to tuck your shit in and peel their arm off.
Yeah.
If they don't let you do those two things,
it's very difficult. Yeah. Like, I mean, you get a 1 week old white belt and you can probably escape because it's whether you can peel.
They're a baby.
Yeah. And whether you can 1 week old white belt. Yeah. Whether you can peel the arm off or they just completely negate, the control of the position you can just completely ruin the angle.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I believe collar chokes are far superior than rear naked chokes in the gi. That's not to say I've never rear naked choked someone in the gi, but but that feeding happens a lot. While we're on attacking with collar chokes from the back, a very, very big mistake that so many people make is extending their arm. You do not extend your arm when you're doing a collar choke from the back, right? So what people will do to make it tighter, they've got their collar choke.
And so we're just talking through a standard cross collar choke from the back. Yeah. Okay.
And they'll extend themselves away, doing a combination of pressing themselves away and doing a tricep extension, which will get the job done if the person defending doesn't know what the fuck's going on, right? The choke will work. However, once you lose that pressure on the back of the head, someone who knows what to do, they'll loop their head out of the choke.
Yeah.
Okay.
It becomes intuitive almost.
It does, right? Like once you've got some experience. So it's not an extension. It's keeping your elbow bent and pulling like your elbow back and your shoulder back. And there are times, again, I've already said this multiple times this episode, rules can be broken, but times when you extend It's when you have something else on the back of the head. So an example would be if you do this collar choke on the other side, so you've now fallen to what we said before is seen as the wrong side to be on when you're attacking. You can do this collar choke in a way that you kind of shove them down into your lap, so your choking arm will extend, but they can't loop their head out because your chest or upper abdomen is on the back of their head. So they try to loop their head out, but there's still something on the back of their head. Is that when you
shove them down by kicking on their hips?
Yeah.
And then you push them down further so their head is around your chest.
Yeah, it's almost turning it into a combination of a collar choke from the back and a bow and arrow.
Yeah,
it's kind of
similar, but without
like
the leg.
If the two had a baby.
Yeah. I don't do that enough. I like that.
Have babies.
Yeah.
God damn, Julia, don't listen to this episode.
No, the fucking choke, you dickhead. Not the babies. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Go on.
Sorry, did you have something? Go ahead,
I just had
I wanted to ask.
I just wanted to ask another question.
Oh, no, go ahead. I thought you were going to go to defending, and I was going to be like, whoa, I'm still talking about attacking.
So with attacking, and this is something that I discovered, sort of, I discovered fairly recently-ish, or it's become a big problem fairly recently-ish. I consider attacking the back as one of my strongest positions, if you will. It's the best position to be in, but relative to my other game, when I get someone's back, I have a decent percentage of finishing. However, there is circumstances or people that have identified one of my a chink in the armor, if you will, on my back attacking system, and that is head position. And I was wondering if we could talk a bit about the importance of your head position in maintaining the back and what to do about it.
Yeah, so you always have to have something between their head and the mat. Okay, so this also will help elaborate on why being on the wrong side is not the wrong side if you know what you're doing. So when you fall to the choking side, the thing that's in between the mat and their head is your choking arm, the pillow, right? Whereas when you fall to the other side, there's nothing, but there is, right? It should be your head, okay? So you should more or less, when you're on someone's back, kind of a lot of the time be ear to ear or cheek to cheek, okay? Your choking arm should be able to feed around their neck and feed yourself a cookie.
Got it?
Yeah. Okay. So because if they can get their head to the mat, that's the first point for them. What comes after their head? Their shoulders.
Yeah.
Comes after their shoulders, their upper back, right? And then you've lost the back.
Yep.
Okay. If someone can't get their head to the mat, they can't get their fucking shoulders to the mat, right? So something. Kieren's wait. Can you? No, you can't.
Nope,
right?
definitely can't.
So your head position is really important. Okay, it's always on the opposite side of their head as your choking arm. Okay, so if your choking arm is your left arm, your head should be to the right of their head, always at the opposite side. Okay. And obviously this changes. You can't stay cheek to cheek once you're doing bow and arrow chokes or once you're shoving them down into your lap to transition to an armbar or a triangle or something like that.
You have to sacrifice some sort of positional control in order to take the submission sometimes.
Yeah. Or ideally you sub that control for a different form of control.
That's probably a better way to do it.
Yeah. He was like, damn. Right? Yeah. So head position is super important, right? Does that answer the question?
Yeah. So I think I've been overthinking it, or maybe maybe I'll need to get into the position and then think about this concept in the position. But I think even with my choking arm on their head, maybe I need to get better at controlling that. Like I'll give you an example.
So in what way are you losing it?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So say we fall to the pillow side, as we've been calling it this episode, and they're able to, I'm just trying to imagine a scenario where they could beat my arm and get to the mat, and I don't.
So what would be happening then is that I think I see where you're going.
Yep.
Is that you're probably at the cost of looking for the submission, losing the impalement position. And I would imagine you're still they're not getting their head to the mat.
But they've already turned in, yeah.
But they've already taken. So sometimes it's not that they need to get their head and shoulders to the mat. That's not necessarily the point, right? I mean, it is, but saying get your head to the mat, get your shoulders to the mat gives us a tangible goal, but really it's get your back off their chest.
Yes.
So they might not have made it to the mat, but if you've like sacrificed chest to back and you might have like sunk the choke in, but they've ruined the angle a little bit, like then you're going to lose it.
I think that's exactly it.
Yeah. And then it's going to be, in training, maybe people will still tap because it's uncomfortable. It's still choking a bit and half cranking a little bit. But
from that position,
comp, right?
I would more likely go for the chair sit that we're talking about before. Chair sit drill. Yeah. Or like chair sit into a bow and arrow or whatever, which, anyway. Yeah. And I think maybe I have been overcomplicating it because it's only like one or two people that have identified, if I do this, I can get out of his back control.
Name them. Who are they, Kieren?
It's Rob.
Fucking no-gi Rob.
It's that fucking head control thing. He in his mind.
Yeah, but no-gi Rob also always wears headgear.
It's hard when he wears the headgear.
Man, it's actually really annoying to attack the back when people have headgear.
I was talking
there's a reason why you're not
yeah.
allowed to wear headgear in competitions. Yeah. I don't mind people wearing it in training because
protect their ears.
Yeah, they might have they might have a current ear injury, flare up like cauliflower ear, or some people have jobs where they don't.
Some people don't want fucking collies,
Yeah, or some people just don't want cauliflower ear. So yeah, but it definitely is harder to
because
attack.
You're fighting against like,
and then when they start grinding their head into yours,
it's plastic. And Rob wears the wrestler headgear where it's those plastic cups on his ears.
Yeah.
When you have like a smooth, like sweaty, like so it's slick. And you have that plastic shit, it can slide all over your face. You can't use friction, skin on skin.
Oh, it fucking cut you too. And it just hurts. It's hard plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Rob.
I think I need to just remember these concepts and focus on that impalement and keep my head on the opposite side. Because I've been like playing around with the head same side to not only have my arm in the way, but also have my head in the way. And I think that's fucking me up as well. Yeah. I'm thinking too much about it. I need to simplify it and focus on the basics and focus on the skills.
Yeah. Now, still the last thing I want to say about attacking, because look, really with questions and answers and whatever, we could spend ages just talking about the one thing. But to just finish off attacking, if we're talking about, I really only spoke about gi attacking so far. So if it's no gi where obviously collar chokes aren't an option. In terms of chokes, it's really just that fulcrum choke or a rear naked choke without switching to like triangles and stuff like that. My advice would be to learn some basic, intermediate, advanced grip trapping techniques. Okay, so against someone a similar skill level, it's going to be very hard to finish them from the back with just simply like wrapping a rear naked choke, right? If you don't know what we mean by grip fighting techniques, well, the very basic, well-known one that everyone should know, unless you're 1 week into your jiu-jitsu journey, is that the arm that's not the choking arm will typically hold that nearest hand or wrist, ideally the hand.
Yes.
Not the wrist, ideally the hand.
And why?
Well, because when you hold the wrist, the weakest link in the chain becomes your grip, right? Usually.
The grip of the attacker, the grip of someone holding their wrist, right?
That's right. Yep. That's right. Because they'll try. So the idea of that grip is then so you've at least taken it from one choking arm against two defending arms to one choking arm against one defending arm, because the other two arms are having their own fucking orgy off to the side, right? So you can, so you can even the odds, so to speak. Obviously, the defender doesn't want that. So sometimes the grip on the wrist will suffice, but a lot of the times it won't, and the defender will be able to do like essentially a tricep extension and break that grip. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. So if they can do that tricep extension, the grip breaking is just dependent on how strong your grip is of their wrist. However, when you grab the hand and the whole hand, you're not allowed to grab digits, fingers. So the whole hand.
Grab the knuckles.
Yeah. When they do that tricep extension, what happens is before the wrist goes, their wrist starts to bend. So it gets to a point where they can't tricep extend any further because they start like not wrist locking themselves, but their own wrist starts bending.
Yep.
So they're stuck, and that wrist bend happens before your grip gives out.
So the wrist becomes the weakest link in the chain.
That's right. Yeah. So your control is like way, way better. So that's your standard grip fight, right? And sometimes even at the black belt level, that works, because it's jiu-jitsu's dynamic. Maybe that one little grip fight, it happens as you take the back and you sink the choke, or it happens and
if you have really good control, if you're chest to chest, your face is right up in their shit, you have their hand, a lot of the time, regardless of them fighting with one hand, you can just slide it in.
Yeah, maybe you're 9 minutes into a 10-minute round, so fatigue, lots of things can happen. But a step further, because you don't have collar chokes and grips, and the person defending has less to worry about, in my opinion, in no-gi, when someone's on their back, they don't have to worry about collars and lapels at all, right? My advice is to learn some grip fighting techniques. So it could just be some simple patty cake techniques, right, that exist, into some more complicated trapping an arm with your leg and things like that.
What about that one? Is it called? It's not called a straight jacket, is it?
Yeah, straight jacket is where you grab opposite hands, right?
Yes.
So it
I
looks
love
like
that.
a straight jacket.
That's my favorite.
It's a great form of control to then be able to expose a moment of
So just very, very simply, the way to do that is your choking hand grabs first, the opposite hand. So both hands grab the opposite so you're the attacker. Your choking hand reaches across, grabs the opposite hand, and then your non-choking hand grabs the other hand, and you'll be in a position where when you push down and let go of your choking hand, your non-choking hand will be in a position where it pushes down both of their hands. So it's a 1-on-0 situation.
There'll be a small moment where they have no arms to defend, right? That one arm won't keep both of them trapped the whole time. It will keep the one you're holding trapped.
Yes.
But they'll exist
a little moment.
Catches.
One catches two, and then you can sync it up.
When to become one.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not the one where you come up and bat, is it?
No. Swat it away.
I'm thinking of something else. Yeah. That's just standard.
Yeah. So that would be my advice for, attacking no-gi, is to learn some arm trap grip fighting techniques, right, for when you're on the back. On to the next one when it comes to defending.
All right, defending.
And depending on the position that we're talking about, as we progress through this series, defense-wise, there will be definitely some common themes. But for sure, when we can more or less keep this really short and concise for defending the back, because it's number one is defending the submission. For any position where submissions are possible, defending the submission has to be the first, your first objective, and then defending the position and escaping the position. But we can really just summarize this by saying, even if you don't know what to do, if you just mess with the angle, that is going to take you a long, long way. So when we talk about conceptual learning, conceptual teaching, the one we always say is, leg locks, clear the knee line, or control the knee line. If you just think, I don't know what's fucking going on, but whatever angle he currently has, angle, I mean the alignment of your two bodies.
The impalement, yeah.
Change that angle. And that goes for a lot of submissions. Most submissions, if not all, I've never actually sat down and literally done a thought process of every single submission, but all submissions require more or less a specific alignment of angles and body parts for the submission to work, right? So the one that we said, maybe how you're losing the rear naked choke is you're getting the choke, but then the alignment, the angle is getting ruined. So you're losing the choke, right? So if you can constantly ruin the angle, understand that them attacking you, controlling you, they're trying to steer the handlebars. If you can, have handlebars that are so wobbly they can't hold on, you're going to ruin that angle, right? They're not going to be able to submit you. They're not going to be able to control the position. In terms of taking that a little bit further, like I said, the mat is just a tangible objective of where you want to get your head and shoulders, really it's just about getting your head and shoulders off of their chest, right? And I don't want to talk about really specific escapes. Like there's some really nice detailed escapes of specifically escaping like a body triangle and things like that. But that's, really fancy ways to undo people's hooks and legs and start getting your hip to the mat. But yeah, the crux of it is you need to first and foremost defend the submission and then ruin the angle to start getting your back to the mat. If your back's on the mat, they can't be on your back. In saying that, if halfway through an escape, a submission then becomes more presents itself more as more of an immediate danger, you have to go back to defending that, right? You really do. And I think a good example of that is if you go back and watch the second super fight of Roger Gracie and Buchecha, you see Roger take Buchecha's back and Buchecha do something that resulted in him getting submitted that you might look at and go, why would like a 10-time world champion do that? Which was that he kind of ignored the submission to start using his hands to push Hodge's hooks off and stuff, right, to try escape, which resulted in him getting choked.
You got collar choked, yeah?
I believe it was a collar choke, yeah. However, my interpretation of what played out there was not a 10-time world champion not knowing what to do. It was a 10-time world champion not being I got a little ahead of myself. Let me dial one back. So this will be a common theme as well across defending everything or escaping everything, which is that I say this a lot to my students, especially when I'm talking about escaping side control. And when we get to side control, for sure, I'll bring this up again, which is I talk about using the part of your body that has more mobility and is less controlled to rescue the part that's more trapped. So let's say you're in side control and someone has your shoulders completely pinned. That usually comes at the cost, exactly, of them not having your hips as pinned. So instead of just fighting to free your shoulders against them pinning your shoulders, you recruit your hip mobility to rescue your shoulders, right? And the opposite is true. If they're fully committing everything to pin your hips, you use your shoulder mobility to help start freeing your hips. So my interpretation of what played out with Hodger and Buchecha was Buchecha realizing that his upper body was so controlled. Hodger had such good control on those handlebars that he made a calculated risk that unfortunately didn't pay off for him. And this is like any defensive position, the worse it is, the more risk you have to take. And it doesn't always pay off. Buchecha's gamble would have been the equivalent of, when someone's losing at gambling and they say double or nothing, right? It's either like you're either going to be in the clear or you're fucked.
Yep.
Right. And so I believe he made an educated decision to take the risk of use his hands to try to get rid of one of Hodge's hooks, which was going to buy him much more hip mobility. And then he could have used that hip mobility to help start freeing his shoulders to escape the back. Unfortunately, it didn't play out, right? Unfortunately, Hodger capitalized on that, but that's how it goes, right? You're in a shit spot, you're going to get caught or whatever. So yeah, going back to what I was saying, you always have to defend the submission first, but if you can ruin angles and then recruit whatever part of your body has more mobility to free the part of your body that is more controlled, that's going to take you really far, and that's going to help you get your back off of their chest. They want to stay impaled. You do not, right? And don't think as well, when you're trying to get your back off someone's chest, don't try to turn, don't try to, so let's imagine, okay, so if someone's on your back, don't think about it like this. If I want to turn to my right, okay, I'm not thinking about pushing my left shoulder forward to turn, because that's a very easy singular circular motion that they can follow or stop. So don't think about turning that shoulder forward. Think about pulling your right shoulder backwards. Yeah. So it's more like kind of, instead of turning away from them, it's kind of scraping yourself down them.
Yeah. When I think about
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And when I think about it, if I'm on like left side, they're on my back, I'm trying to get my right shoulder to the mat. I'm not trying to push my left shoulder forward.
That's right. Yeah. So think about it like that, because when people just turn, that's when people just like alligator roll across the mats. It's very, I mean, there's times where you'll turn, obviously, because there's times where you'll try to do a really quick like
to beat them.
Spin. And it becomes a bit of a race and whatever. And so,
but in a more static, grindy position. Yeah, totally.
So hopefully those help with helping you understand the concepts of general concepts, attacking and defending. So on from that, let's talk about some resources that you can use.
I really like that drill that you mentioned.
So the drill is a great drill, of the chair sit drill.
Yeah, and it's, look, is it a basic drill? Yes. Is it still applicable to every belt? Also, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's only basic if it's been explained to you. Like, I mean, for example, my, competition classes or pro training or whatever you want to call it in Brazil, like this was just, you didn't even have to, like, Fabio could be like, I can't even remember what that drill was called in Portuguese, but, you'd just say, okay, chair sit, 3 minutes each, and that's it. People knew what to do. They'd do it, but obviously you need to learn it first. I mean, I know purple belts who you'd still have to teach it to them before they know what they're doing. So that's a great drill. Resources, or if you want to watch Jiu-Jitsu, whatever, obviously there's so many instructionals. I don't want to mention any one specifically, but some of the names that are best known for their back control is Marcelo Garcia, right? Obviously Gordon Ryan, John Danaher have so many DVDs out. Hodger Gracie is also known with incredible back control.
Man, Gordon Ryan's got fucking instructionals on how to bloody blow your nose and wipe your ass at this point.
So there's obviously, if you're talking about an instructional, fuck man, just pick an athlete who you like, But some of the more current ones, or very current, is if you look at Giancarlo Bordoni, who won ADCC this year.
Amazing back control.
Yeah, he pretty much won most of his fights by taking the back and a rear naked choke. So that's a very current 2022 ADCC champion who pretty much won gold by taking the back and finishing with a choke. But yeah, if you want a instructional specifically on back control, man, just pick an athlete you like, and that, I think they'll all be, I don't want to say the same thing, like everyone will have different details, but
same value proposition.
That's
as in
right.
You're gonna progress the same sort of.
Yeah, if you said speaking, which one's better, Gordon Ryan's or Marcelo Garcia's, I'm gonna say, well, they're both really good. Like whichever you prefer. Some are going to be more applicable to your game or your style. So
yeah, totally.
Just pick one you want.
Mate, well, that was excellent. First episode in the positional series.
It was so structured, bro.
It was structured AF. I even got timestamps already.
You forgot a timestep there.
You'll figure it out. Figure it out in post, mate.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any closing thoughts?
I'll just tell one funny anecdote that I've probably told it before, but not everyone has listened to every single episode. Shock and awe. So I've only ever been put to sleep in training or in competition once, right? Unlike the veteran over here.
This is not something to be proud of. This is not a veteran status that you want.
So it's only happened to me once, and I was training with one of my students, Dan, who is one of my first students, actually. So Dan and Jake, long-time listeners will know that we've dumped shit on them multiple times, but they're good students, good friends. They joined the gym maybe a week after opening. They've been with us since. So Dan is very, very good at back control and very good at defending the back.
Very good, yeah.
Like very hard to submit because it's kind of the way he's more willing to give his back when he's getting his guard passed or escaping side control or whatever.
He's so comfortable there. Not many people can finish in
which has resulted in him being incredibly difficult to finish from the back. But he's also very good on your back. And we were doing specific or something, and he was on my back, and he had whatever collar choke or something, and yeah, and it was tight and everything, and he let go, and I hadn't tapped, and I'm like, I was a bit fired up or whatever, and I was like, man, why like as in tough love, I was like, why'd you fucking let go? He's like, oh, because I thought, like I think it got into his head the whole like, oh, I can't submit a black belt or I can't submit my coach, whatever. I'm like, why the fuck you let go? And he's just a bit sort of like, and I was like, man, don't let go again. And you don't let go until I tap or pass out. So we went again, and then like I passed out. and then when I sort of came to, but I'm not sure, obviously I don't know to what extent I passed out, but like I do remember like coming to, and it wasn't the typical someone standing over me, shaking my legs, going like, what happened? Yeah. Dan let go at some point because I didn't tap. I think he let go because he thought I was pretending to be asleep, I think is what happened. But I went out, and then he's like, did you go out? And then I literally was like, I said, nah, man, I was just thinking about what hamburger I'm having for dinner. I was like, I don't know, maybe I got chicken burger, maybe like, I was like, so I passed out and was obviously thinking about food, and I was rambling about chicken burgers. And
oh man,
yeah, so it's the only time I've been out, and it was from the back, and yeah, chicken burger. I don't know. That's my closing thoughts. Guys, love it. Let us know what you think about this new positional series. Well, I mean, look, we've started now, so
there's no going back.
Yeah.
Love it or hate it, it's here to stay.
Yeah, if you have any specific questions, obviously, as always, you can find us on Instagram at @BeyondJujitsu_podcast. The YouTube episodes on the new YouTube channel. If you haven't been there to subscribe, even if you don't watch it there, would be awesome, right? Helps us out, especially because we just moved them from Kieren's channel. So now we've gone from like episodes getting views to like none. It's our morale a little bit. No, it's fine. It'll pick up. And yeah, guys, anything else, Kieren?
No, summarized it
well. That's it, guys. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.